Welcome back to Continuing the Conversation, where we bring you authentic AI insights. I'm Chelene Martin, AI enthusiast, business strategist, and co-founder of Revenue Pulse Advisors. My mission is to make AI practical and powerful for real people in real life. Here's something that's been bothering me. Everyone's obsessed with AI skills, whether that's prompt engineering, context management, model selection, but I think we're starting in the wrong place entirely. The truth, most of us are just bad communicators. We assume people can read our minds, we give vague instructions, we don't listen when things go sideways, and then we expect AI to magically understand what we can't even clearly explain to other humans. So today, we're going back to basics. Before you learn AI, learn to actually communicate. Joining me is Rob, the CEO of CharmIQ. Rob, welcome back.
Hello.
All right, the communication reality check. Let's have an uncomfortable conversation. Why is poor communication really the bottleneck and not AI capabilities? That's a good question. Love to hear your answer.
I love this question. We get this all the time, and especially working with CharmIQ, I see people's prompts all the time. We are just bad communicators. We are so used to talking to people who work in our same area. So if you think about your day, chunk it up into a couple bits. Your morning and evening are with your family, with your friends. They know you. The reason you're hanging around them is you have shared experiences. So you could start a sentence and your partner can probably finish it. Your kids probably are mimicking or mouthing the words that you're going to say as you're saying it. So we have so much shared experience there. The bulk of our day, we're at work. We work in a place with the same people that have the same skills. Typically, unless your job is specifically communicating between groups, you're always in the same zone. So you get so accustomed to that. The only time you typically don't have that is when you switch jobs. And a lot of people attribute like all that anxiety and problem they have to like, oh, I can't learn this new job. But typically it's remembering the fact that you have to provide so much context, or you have to understand the context that you're in this new environment. So I love to use those analogies, and I love to make it so that people realize that you're just not practicing it. It's not a thing that you do every day. So this isn't a problem that you have. This isn't a problem that you cannot solve. This is just something that you don't do all the time. I was fortunately lucky in all of my career that I specifically sit in a translator role. So I sit between typically the business and the customer and engineering and all those things. And I sit right at that nexus. And I'm constantly trying to communicate between all these different groups. So I'll put a pin in that for one quick second and just say, if there's any executives out there that are listening to this, the example that I always think of in my head is the two smart people that I talk to all the time that know nothing about what I do, yet are extremely skilled, are my attorney and my accountant.
True.
And I specifically hire them because they are smart people and they know their domains. But every time I talk to them, I feel different because I don't really know what they're saying, and I can tell that they don't really know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I know both sides of that conversation are smart.
Yeah.
So I know through my personal experience, even though I do translate between all these people all the time, that it's still really uncomfortable and almost not natural whenever you're talking to another person that doesn't have your experience. But again, you know that they're smart enough that if they had the same context, you could do it. So just giving that, just setting that as like the background, that's how you have to think about AI, is that AI may be smart, but it knows nothing about you. It knows nothing about what you know. It kind of has this general knowledge. So until you specifically say, hey, like this is who I am, this is how I think, this is what my roles are, then it'll start to potentially get into a place where you can have a conversation that's easier and less of that dissonance that you have between the two parties.
100%.
So
Yeah.
you even find this, we can use the smaller examples of you and your partner trying to figure out what's for dinner. If your spouse says, pick something up for dinner, unless you already had a discussion about it, you may know some context about what you should bring and everything else. But otherwise, you have to ask that question. You have to say like, hey, what should we have tonight? Like, is it, we had this yesterday and that and so forth. So again, think of all the cases in your life, again, where you're in a comfortable situation and you sometimes get stepped out of it, and like, remember the context that you have.
Yeah, that's so true. I live with that same example all the time. And mine's a little different because I'll say, to the kids on the way to school, like, hey, what do you guys want for dinner tonight? And, Charlie's answer is always going to be In-N-Out Burger, and June is always going to be Tudo's Pizza. But what I failed to include in the question was, I'm making dinner tonight. What would you like? Also, I'm not a short order cook, right? So I'm not making everything for everyone. So neither of the kids was wrong. I just wasn't clear, right? And the same with AI. One interesting thing is once I stopped typing and I started talking, my instructions got clearer because speaking made it more conversational, more human. And then the AI actually gets to know me better and my personality and the words I use and my style. And for me, that was a total game changer early on. And I always love to tell people once they're getting started, because I get that question a lot, I say, introduce yourself. Sit down and introduce yourself to what other AI platform you're going to use. Say, like, this is a get to know me session, and just start talking and then have AI ask you questions. So that's another tip.
And that's a great example, by the way, of changing the way your mode. I've seen so many times where I'm in my head thinking and I'm typing and I look back at what I typed and it isn't what it was that I thought that I typed.
Right.
And I'll also admit that there are cases when I'm speaking and I listen back to what I said. I'm like, wow, there's parts of that I was thinking that I never actually said. So what's really interesting about the talk to type is you kind of blend those two. So not only are you talking and you hear yourself, you can then read it and go, wow, I missed a whole bunch of stuff in there. So that is a really good example of a good way that even if you are thinking about the situation in your head, you may actually not be communicating it, even though it's in your head.
Yeah, it's a game changer for me. So if you're not doing it, listeners, definitely start doing it today. It's a total game changer. And the good news is AI doesn't judge you. I talk and I love to express myself, and they don't judge you on how long the prompt or the question is. I think it really...
There's no eye roll from the AI.
No, like there isn't. And that's what I love. So when someone doesn't understand us in real life, what do good communicators do differently than bad communicators?
This is a good question. I was recently on a trip out of the country, and my partner, who's not a native English speaker, we were in a country that didn't speak either her language or English. And people were speaking to us in their language. And even though, again, she's not a native speaker and she's been non-native speaking English for so long, she was still doing the standard thing, which is just saying the same thing louder and a little bit slower. But that doesn't work. It's not necessarily that they didn't hear you. It may be that the words you're using that they're not getting. So you typically have to stop and think about, like, how can I express this differently? So good communicators will first notice that it's just not them not hearing you, that it's them not understanding you. And those are two very different things. Whether or not somebody heard the words that you're saying and whether somebody understands those words that you're saying. Whereas bad communicators will really just keep repeating the same thing. And I even find myself doing that from time to time. Like when I really am stuck, I'll just be like, I'm stuck on a thing. Like I'm repeating the same thing over, and I'll use the AI to basically say like, hey, I can feel that I'm not getting this across. Like, can you help me? Like ask me a question or do something to help me break out of that. And I would say that's what makes me a good communicator is I'm willing to say, I see that, or first I'm able to detect that I'm not being understood. And then the second is I'm actually confident enough to be able to say, look, I don't know how to get myself unstuck in this situation. I'm going to need your help to come back to me with this.
Yeah, that for me is key. And I think I definitely learned that from you is I treat AI like a partner. I'll end a request with, do you have any questions for me? Is this clear? Anything else you need for me to make this more efficient or customized? And guess what? 100% of the time, the AI comes back with some smart clarifying questions. And that back and forth has made me a much better communicator in general, right?
I think you touched on the really important thing, which is if you ask the questions, if you ask for questions, you'll get back questions. But what's important to note is are they on track or not? Because sometimes you can tell when the AI is just asking questions because you said to have it ask questions. But right. you usually, and I think you were right, 100% of the time, you always get one question back that you're like, did I not express this correctly? Am I not thinking about it correctly or whatever? So thank you for bringing that point up.
Yeah. I think it's important because it's part of the context, right? And
Totally.
everyone talks about context like it's some magical AI feature. And we talk a lot about context on this podcast. But isn't that just how good communicators have always worked in terms of context?
Yes. If you listen to your favorite TED Talks, listen to your favorite whatever, and what you'll notice is that they'll subtly work in context. They'll make sure that you've either narrowed down what you're talking about or you narrowed the field down that you know what they're talking about. And listen to good communicators. Anyone that you find to be a really good, somebody who can get through to you, figure out why and where they're doing in the conversation. They're providing that context. So the standard examples that we like to use here are, and it's so funny because here in Chicago, we have a bunch of billboards that are all for ChatGPT. And they have what I would say are the worst prompts on the planet. Oh, and I should make a quick tangent and just say, you're not going to hear what we're saying anywhere else on the planet. Because what I find when I'm on the internet is everyone's writing these terrible prompts. They're such tiny ones. And they're like, why isn't this working? And whether it's on the image side or whether it's on the ChatGPT side, these prompts are just, I can't imagine. The fact that the machine is providing a response is remarkable. Right. So going back to my ChatGPT example and going back to our almost canonical example, there's always this like, plan my vacation. Or just like plan my vacation to Europe. And that is the worst prompt that you could possibly do because it doesn't know how old are you? Are you over 65 and you want to like a lower key thing? Are you in your 20s and you have to worry about budget? Are you a foodie? Are you like, there is so many questions that have to be answered. And again, we saw this on a billboard the other day, which is just basically something like that. Help me plan a vacation. It's like, and I get the fact that on a billboard, you can't put like the 14 pages, but I think it's leaning into the fact that people think that that's what you use these tools for and how you use them. And again, it is absolutely not. You need like, I need help planning vacation for a family of 4 people. There's 2 teenagers. The budget is this much. We prefer to fly and not drive. We have 1 week available in July. We've been here before. These are the things that we like. This person doesn't like that. We need 2 rooms. We need 2 beds in 2 rooms, 1 bed, like all of this information. There's no, let's just plan my vacation.
No, there's not. And I see this all the time in leadership meetings, right? And some of the best executives I've ever worked for are the people who add context, right? Budget, timeline, my favorite one is audience, right? They're the ones who actually get their ideas approved and in motion. Right? Context is an extra. It's the price of getting started and getting started like out of the gates, right? Same with AI. If you don't give it constraints and goals, you'll just get guesses or you'll get very like generic responses. And that's where the power of the intelligence is misinterpreted, right? Yes. It wasn't a bad answer. It was a bad question or a bad prompt. So what do skilled communicators do to make sure they're being understood? And how does that apply when working with AI?
I think we've touched on a few of them here, and let's go over them again and let's see if there's anything else that we can add to this. So skilled communicators provide context. They say who they are. They say what the problem is. They say what it's not. They say what they don't want out of the situation. You want to make sure that you ask questions and you want to see if there are questions in that group. And we find this in work meetings all the time where somebody will just say something and then just keep going. And it's okay to give people a moment, not only for yourself to like take that breath and to like move on, but it's okay to give everyone a moment to digest it. So even if there aren't any questions, it gives everyone a moment to just stop that first piece of ingestion and move on to the next one. And it's the same thing with AI. Once you've gotten all your stuff out and like, do you have any questions? Like have it go through the questions and again, take that moment and see like, are there any other questions? Did we cover all of the items up above? One thing that I find myself doing all the time and goes back to like the whole, like plan my vacation is that iteration is key. It
Yeah.
is important to recycle through. And you notice we do this on these podcasts all the time. We'll kind of ask the same question in different ways to see if the difference in the way that we ask the question brings forth different results. Because sometimes different ideas, other things come into your head that weren't available on different questions and so forth. So iterating is super important. Asking the same question a few different ways to see, again, if you're missing pieces and so forth. One of my favorite things that I love to do, especially with my developers, is I have them repeat back what I just said. So if I went through something pretty complicated, I like to say, well, give that back to me in your own words. And you can do that through the LLM as well. You can just say like, hey, play that back for me. I want to make sure that it sounds right to me.
Yeah.
And it'll pepper in different things, and almost without conscious thought, you'll put, whether that's a person or an AI, will just kind of pepper some ideas in there, and you get to see whether they're understanding it by the context that they give you back.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's so important, Rob. And that's how I taught my kids how to use AI. I never just let them come into the platform and say, here's the assignment. The assignment is X, Y, and Z. I say you always have to obviously bring the assignment, but bring your draft. That way they start the work, they get the project going. Do your best shot, even if it's an outline or give me a draft. Tell the coach, or we talk to it like a tutor, tell your tutor what the assignment is and share your draft and your thoughts around it. That is beautiful context. You've already gotten started. And say, what am I missing? Am I following the directions? And how can I make this better? Right? That context is so, so important. So sometimes I've noticed I get lazy with AI. And this didn't happen to me out of the gates. I just got really comfortable, and I have some really good AI agents that I trust and I feel like they know me. But sometimes, especially when I would be typing, I'd never say it to a human. I would just kind of spout it out, like whether I was typing or talking, like why was that happening? What's going on there when we get kind of vague with AI?
That's a good one. So what's interesting is this is both something you can leverage and something you have to kind of watch out for. So let me go to the good side. There's been many times where I'm working through an idea and I'll literally type the yada, yada, yada. And it's surprising the number of times that that actually kind of helps. So by not finishing my sentence, I can see whether it understood where I was going with an idea. And again, that can be a really powerful way to see whether your audience, in this case AI, but human, can kind of get where you're going with it. Again, I've used that to some really good success for myself, to just really understand if again, my previous context is making sense. On the flip side, again, if there is no context, if you're just getting started with this, then you can't just yada, yada, yada your way through a situation, because it has no idea what those gaps are. Mm-hmm. So it's really important. And as we mentioned earlier, just reread what's going on and try to figure out if the answer is going in the wrong direction. Try to figure out like why that's going in the way it's going. In a platform like Charm, for example, you have the ability to go back, and unlike a traditional chat platform where you're kind of stuck with what you've already said, what's nice about Charm is you can kind of go back above what had already been said, and you can kind of retweak what you said and see if the result changes. And I love to do that myself to see, like, again, what different perspectives would have changed the different results that I get. And sometimes that's really important, especially if you have multiple agents, to see what their results are based on the vagueness of the context. Because going back to my lawyer and accountant kind of a thing, I can be vague about accounting things to my accountant, and I can be vague to my attorney about legal things, but I cannot be vague to either of them about what my business is doing, because they have no idea other than the few times that they talk to me. And I don't expect them to remember every single one of those things that we've talked about. So we have to provide that. But again, when it comes to like accounting and legal, we can absolutely get to the shortcuts. And it's really fascinating to see where those things work and where it applies. Because again, you can leverage that vagueness for efficiency. And in other sides, it really does bite you in the butt.
Yeah, I agree with you. And you mentioned a few of the CharmIQ differentiators, right? And I know that there's so many more in the platform that really truly differentiate it than any competitor out there. Can you talk a little bit more about some of the features in CharmIQ that help people develop these skills over time?
Absolutely. So the three kind of main ones that we use are you basically move what you just did down, and the only thing that your terms see are the information above where you're located. So lots of times you just take information, you push it down. So I will take the same basic prompts that I have in the context, and I'll run my first dude, I'll move him down, I'll run the second dude, I'll move him down, I'll run the third dude, I'll move it down, and then I'll go below all of those, and I'll basically take another dude and say, hey, is there anything missing in all of this? And
Yeah.
what's super powerful about that is I'm not polluting each of those with the other's response. They have a completely clear response. So to
Yes.
me, that's like the lifeblood of working in Charm on a daily basis. Like you are constantly getting all of these different viewpoints and doing that. The other technique that we have is around using reference material, all about context. I love to take a thing that I'm working on and apply context to it and see what the answers that I get, and then do it again without the context applied.
Mm.
And again, just see, where is the context making a difference? Is it taking me out of the situation? Is it putting me in the situation? And that's extremely helpful to figure out where that works. And then the last piece, which is kind of a sub piece of the first one, are prompt breakpoints that we have. So basically you can be in the middle of a section of work and you can work on just a small piece. And by putting a prompt breakpoint, what it basically does is it prevents your agent from seeing anything above that information. And what's really nice is you can just take a piece of material and you can vet it by a few of your agents, and then open up the prompt breakpoint, basically give them more of the context and say like, hey, would you have answered this any differently with this? You get some really, again, very fascinating results around trying to understand whether the context is helping or hindering, whether or not the audience that you're using is receptive to that material or not. So thank you for that question, because again, I think we have the only platform on the planet that allows you to exploit these features.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what I love about CharmIQ. It's like a mirror, right? If I'm vague, it reflects that back with me. But also if I'm clear, the results are sharp and usable. And because different charms respond differently, not just based on how they were trained, but what LLM is powering them.
Yes.
Right? It forces me to practice shifting my tone, my level of detail, but it's like communication training disguised as AI collaboration.
Yes.
And it's funny how the LLMs will influence the output,
Mm-hmm.
right? Based on each one. So it is, to my knowledge, the most diverse platform out there for this level of relationships with AI and collaboration and strategy. So it's one of my favorite parts of it.
Yeah, and I'll just say what I'm really enjoying about this particular conversation is that we're talking about communication. Sure, there are some techniques that you can use specifically within a tool to do this, but everything that we're talking about is not AI specific. Like everything that you're learning here about providing context and understanding how to understand when people are not understanding your context. Like all of those techniques that you have, they can be used in your everyday. So whether you're talking to your boss or whether you're talking across departments or whether you're talking to someone new, like it is really important to understand how effectively you're communicating. Because effectively, at the end of the day, you could be the smartest person, you could have the exact right answer for the exact right moment, but unless you can communicate it effectively, it's absolutely lost. So communication is so darn important.
Yes. And one thing I do want to mention, and this is for me, and this is what I've learned over time, and especially in my communication with humans or AI, when it gets it right, I say, this is brilliant. This is amazing. I love this. This is me. And they remember. Right? The things that you like. So not only just saying, this isn't right, stop, this isn't correct. It's the good, the bad, and it all, right? The feedback, say like, that sounds like me, that feels like me, that resonates with me. I love to give it that kind of coaching and feedback because it's all in the memory. And it's all developed. So this has been a reality check that we all needed. And whether you're communicating with humans or AI, all of these are great tips. And remember, the problem isn't that AI is hard to use. It's not. It's that most of us have never really learned to communicate clearly with anyone, human or artificial. So for everyone listening, here's your homework. This week, talk to your AI out loud instead of typing. And with every request, kind of ask for a feedback loop. Is this clear? Do you need anything else? And if you're not sure where to start, just collaborate with AI directly. What do you need from me to make this project work or to get this project started? Remember, AI isn't a mind reader, it's a mirror. The clearer you are, the smarter it gets. Better humans make better AI users, so start there. Rob, thank you for this much needed communication intervention. And remember, these aren't AI skills, they're life skills. Like Rob said, they'll make you better at almost everything, not just working with AI. So links to CharmIQ are below, and join us next time as we tackle part 2 on how to become a continuous learner in the age of exponential change. Thanks, Rob. See you next week. Bye.